Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, if it's live for you or if it's later. Hello, my name is Andrew Hill. I am your host for the evening, your neuroscientist. My job tonight is to teach you some things, so please ask questions and let me know what you're wondering about. If you haven't met me before, I do a live stream most Mondays where I dig into usually some biohacking topic at depth and do a neurofeedback session as well, and usually make the neurofeedback and the topic dovetail. And tonight I thought I would just do a full neurofeedback session, a compound one that includes a few different types of protocols, and explain what I'm doing while I am answering your questions. So if you're watching live, of course, say hello and lay them on us. But if you're watching later, hey, from the past, please leave your questions below and I'll come back and answer them. So let me turn off the little titles here. There it is. Okay. Hey, Radar Ashwood. Nice to see you today. How are you doing? Whoops, close my, there we go. Turn off the title, not my face. Where's the title? There it is. Hey, Radar, how are things today? I see a couple of folks trickling in. So I'm going to do a couple things to start off. I'm assuming my audio is okay. It looks okay from my side, but let me know because I never know. And I'm going to do an HEG session. So on the screen right now, I have a piece of software called BioExplorer, which is pretty basic, but it works pretty well. And I'm going to use an EEG amplifier, or actually a multimodal amplifier called the QWiz. Sorry, let me start that over again for the shorts. I'm going to use a QWiz multimodal amplifier that has EEG and HEG to train tonight. It's a multi-channel amp, and we'll be using one channel of HEG and then probably one channel at a time of EEG training and do a couple different things. So let me switch to an HEG headset. So if you haven't heard of HEG, it's a less well-known form of neurofeedback where we still train the brain, but we're training, instead of the electricity, which is the EEG training, we're training blood flow dynamics, vascular dynamics. And so what I'm using is a tool like this. It's basically a set of infrared cameras, little tiny lenses that point inward, and they measure waves of heat as they come off my head. And so this is a pretty easy device to set up. It's all in place now. And I also train in a really basic way with it. So I'm going to plug that into my device. When I do that, my software that's on the screen, you may notice the upper right-hand corner of the screen if your eyes are sharp. The CH1 and CH2 changed to 2 items. And it's flashing blue right now up here because it's calibrating. What that's doing is getting ambient baseline room temperature, essentially, background temperature. And so once it finishes baselining, it'll go solid blue. There it is. Now CH1 is solid blue. And this means that the HEG signal is calibrated or baselined. So all I'm going to do is hit play on this little training design I've created. Not sure if you can probably hear that. I bet you can. It's on a different set of speakers than I usually play. So let me know if you're in the live stream. Give me an audio check on the sound from the training software, please. So what I'm doing is tying in heat to my training signal. The purple trace is moving up and down with temperature, and the red ball is moving up and down, and the audio is, the pitch is going up and down as well. And so, you know, the heat in my brain, the natural vascular dynamics are varying moment to moment. And so that's what you're hearing. You're hearing the rise and fall, or seeing the rise and fall of that dynamic heat signal. But you can sort of exert or concentrate off it and make it go up higher. Let's see if I can do it. There we go. So right on command, I was able to think a little harder, think a little harder, think a little harder. There we go. So I'm just concentrating and causing vascular changes, vascular surges of heat to my my audio, my HEG signal, hemoencephalography signal. Hey, El Chatterino, the audio sounds clearer than in the past. If it's the audio for the reward, I have it coming off of my TV about 10 feet away instead of off the little monitor speaker here. If it's my voice, it's the same thing as usual. Just must be one of those days. All right, let's make another HEG surge. There we go. So one thing that's important to know about doing this voluntary flavor of HEG training is the signal moves about 2 seconds after you concentrate, maybe 1.5 to 2 seconds, because that's the time scale of the vascular response called the BOLD response, the blood oxygen level dependent response. Same thing you're picking up in fMRI, but it's not really localized the way fMRI is. So I'm going to do a few minutes of this, about 6-7 minutes of this. And then I'm going to do a couple of short segments of EEG training. And EEG is what we often think about when we say neurofeedback, this involuntary shaping of the EEG. In this case, it's a semi-voluntary shaping of the HEG, the vascular tone. The feedback audio sounds better? Yeah, well, it makes sense, El Chatterino. The feedback audio is on like really high, large TV speakers about 10 feet away and filling the whole room. So that must be what it is. Okay. A little fatigue crept in. Maybe you could see it on the screen. It's also not scaled super well. I'm going to scale this so it's a little bit less busy. You right click, you go to properties. This is called CH1, and then you increase the sensitivity, which decreases the scale. I'm going to give it 100% sensitivity, which is 100M in BioExplorer. So each one of those boxes is, each one of those boxes is, I think, a 10% change. So let me see another surge coming up. There we go. Okay, that was a big one. And sometimes happy thoughts will do it too. Happy thought. Happy thought? Nope. Maybe. Happy's slower for me, apparently. Concentration works a lot faster. Concentrate. Yeah. So concentration's really a lot easier. Apparently, I need help being happy. That probably means I should do more neurofeedback with the emotional access stuff. Although, honestly, I would use different things for improving emotions with neurofeedback. I wouldn't use HEG because it tends to be a little activating, and it can drive up like an overactivation phenomena where you're a little on edge or a little anxious. So while over time it could improve mood, it wouldn't do it per session. And so I wouldn't want to use it as a primary goal. All right, so I'm 4.5 minutes in. You can't see because the timer is behind my head on the screen, but I can see it. And I'm doing about 7 minutes of the HEG, and then I'll shift over to EEG training. So I hope you guys are having a wonderful day or evening. Tell me about your neurofeedback. Tell me about the things you're playing with biohacking. Tell me about any questions you have. Ask me any questions you have. I've been working hard on a directory website. So for those of you who are looking for providers and resources, in the next few days, I should be launching a directory of neurofeedback across hundreds, thousands, hopefully, of providers and vendors, trying to really collect some sense of the resources across our field without really going through a particular vendor or education provider or certificate provider. I think there's a lot of misinformation out there about, what is necessary to do good neurofeedback, but I also want to, respect the certifications that people have. So I want to aggregate a bunch of providers and get them to be easily searchable. Radar Ashwood is asking, what kind of protocols would I do for emotional access and happiness? Depends on why it's blocked is the short answer. You may, one could easily see protocols around the approach versus the avoid stuff, the left front versus right front asymmetry phenomena. Now, if someone's EEG has those asymmetries, and or if they have sort of tonic stuck alpha in this left front corner of the brain, those could be features for mood. You could also see potentially slowed peak alpha frequency, or eyes closed posterior dominant rhythm, which is the same thing. The PDR and the PAF are the same concept. You know, how fast is the alpha at rest, at PZ, with the eyes closed? If that runs slow, that can really drive both mood and intelligence down, because the speed of processing gets pinched. So depends on why somebody's having trouble. Sometimes people have trouble with accessing emotional stuff because of difficulty feeling emotions, you know, really breaking through to deep internal access and awareness of their emotions, good or bad. And for things like that, you know, you might really go after alpha theta, or more, you know, non-linear access consciousness kind of protocols that are the sort of flow state ones. I had a client today do a compound protocol that he really enjoyed, and he made comments about being ridiculously blissed out afterwards. And it was a frontal dual. So we did F7 and F8 in a dual protocol. So on the left, you were rewarding beta, inhibiting alpha. On the right, the opposite. And after that, he did a midline, an FZ minus PZ down training, inhibiting extra theta. And the two stacked in a very interesting way and created a huge amount of bliss, actually, for him. Now, he's also a pretty blissful guy and spends a huge amount of time meditating. So I'm not sure that it would do that for everyone, but you can do a lot with pushing the brain around. But the short answer is, why are you having trouble with your happiness, your joy, your access to those deep emotions? Is it because of stress, fatigue, sleep, speed of processing, trauma, attention? You know, why is it happening? And go after the bottlenecks, and that'll help you get in the way, get access to what you want. Radar's also asking, ever hear of a Fisher-Wallace device? Sure. I used one the last couple of days. Seems to help with sleep onset. Yeah, it's a electrostim, right? It's a cranial electrostim device, essentially. And I believe that it has, I don't know if it's FDA clearance, but some endorsement for anxiety, I believe, is the big takeaway for the Fisher-Wallace, maybe for mood as well. I think Fisher-Wallace is one of the more legit ones that's done some research, that has good safety search, that's really done, you know, all the homework to document out that the device can do something. So I think it's interesting, the Fisher-Wallace. I'm not a huge fan of the stim devices myself, just because I'm not a practitioner or clinician in that way. I want to only work with passive devices and work very gently. But I think if I had phenomena for which that would be a target, I might try it myself. Some other good questions here. El Chatterino is asking, what precautions and approach to take when working with someone with 3 to 4 hertz dominant with spikes through O1, PZ, P4, T4, F4, F3, 3 to 5 years after 2 strokes? So those locations are kind of all over the place. I'd want to see 2 montages. I want to see a Laplacian, or some sort of local, maybe a bipolar pair, plus a global, like a linked ears. If those are multiple strokes causing that phenomena, and they have 3 to 4 hertz excess in those areas, you're looking at hypoperfusion from the stroke, probably, right? You'd want to check and see where, more specifically, where the 3 to 4 hertz is focal, where the coherence is being driven by. There's probably hypercoherent, if I had to guess, in theta. It's probably hypocoherent in things like alpha or beta, probably alpha, but it can also happen in beta. And try to figure out what regions are interconnected. And then you can think about the cross-frequency coupling phenomena. And once you look at the cross-frequency coupling, i.e. which brainwaves might be involved across which regions, you know, if, let's see, PZ and T4. If PZ and T4 are yoked together in 3 to 4 hertz, both with amplitudes at one of them and hypercoherence between them, you're probably going to see something where there's a lot of disinhibition to filtering the outside, especially the sensory world. And this person would probably have a lot of sensory flooding kind of phenomena is my guess. They could also have a lot of anxiety or trauma. So I would look very carefully at the 1 hertz wide bins to figure out where there's individual hertz that you might want to think about. I would look very carefully at the raw data, at the squiggles, and figure out if there are transients that don't show up in the QEEG. You might see beta spindles with someone, the brain trying to cut through all these slow bursts. I would just work very slowly, assume their brain's going to be tired easily. El Chatterino, how old is this person? That will have some impact on how you go after it. But generally, I'll go a little bit slower, shorter sessions, a tiny bit slower hertz than you would normally go after for somebody. Assume their brain's easily taxed. I would do, complementary things potentially, like having them go, if they're interested, a little bit low carb, or try some exogenous ketones as supplements. I would be paying a lot of attention to their sleep to make sure they're not having secondary inflammatory stuff being provoked by untreated apnea. If they're interested in doing hyperbaric medicine and they had resources, I'd help them find a chamber. I would recommend they find a real hard chamber and do 20 sessions at 2 atmospheres across a month after their neurologist cleared them. I would also, these strokes are not recent, right? Yeah, 3 to 5 years after 2 strokes, it's fine. But if this was a recent stroke, get their neurologist on board as well. If this is within a few months even, the neurologist will likely be very dismissive of the neurofeedback, but I would still reach out with the client's permission and say, hey, or have the client reach out and double check with a neurologist that it's okay, because you don't want to be working in a recently injured brain and not have good medical oversight, essentially. But no, I mean, HEG would also work as well. I would go very gently and slowly, only a few minutes of a time of HEG, and I would do the PIR version, unthresholded, the way that you saw me do it here. Let me switch to EEG training since we're doing a full session tonight. I'm opening up Eager. I'm going to quit BioExplore. Whoops. So I have 2 amps plugged in, really? My software thinks I have 2 amps plugged in. Too many Wiz devices to guess. That's the error message from Eager. Too many Wiz devices to guess. I must have a second one plugged in. Interesting. Warnings. What are my warnings here? Oh, my license expires. I have another license somewhere. I have to get it. All right, so let me set up. This is Eager. And let me first make sure that I have... Do I have more than one amplifier here, really? Plugged in? Oh, I do. I also have a 4-channel UWIS plugged in, which, just for fun, I'm going to switch to it because it's lighter weight. But now let me let's see. 30 seconds, El Chatterino. What was the context there? 30 seconds? El Chatterino asks, they are timed, the licenses. Yeah, the Eager is FDIC registered software, so the home use licenses time out either month to month or once a year. And the clinical licenses, even when you buy them outright, now most people lease them these days because they're fairly expensive, but back in the day you could buy them outright and they were a few grand. Now they're like $7,000 or $8,000 for a clinical license. But even the fully owned ones, I own a dozen clinical licenses of Eager across the company. Those still expire once a year, but you get a free renewal essentially. So they're still tracked as medical software, but it's a free license re-enable essentially from Eager. Radar, you like my design, my BioExplorer design for PIR? I appreciate that. El Chatterino says, I thought it took a dongle. Yeah, both Eager and BioExplorer take dongles. Eager has a key lock on the dongle, so it's a specific instance of Eager tied to a specific dongle, and you have license enables for different features in Eager at the level of the dongle. That includes some game enables like Zucore games that are the third-party ones. BioExplorer's dongle is a basic hasp, Aladdin a hard lock, and it won't launch without it. This is why it can be hard to run BioExplorer, one of the reasons, on emulators, because the hard locks don't have good drivers for the emulators. Radar, in terms of getting an HID design, an HEG design, I don't give out my designs, sadly. I only work with clients, but I can teach you how to make it. It's pretty basic. If you're already using BioExplorer, make sure you have a real-time HEG signal coming in. So get to the place where you can show the trace on the screen like I did, and then simply tie that to a MIDI output. And then MIDI output is... has a range. And that's basically it. And the only thing is I'm doing a little bit of smoothing on the way in. So I'm taking the signal before it hits the audio and doing a little bit of smoothing so it doesn't swing quite so wildly. And I think I'm doing a sampling, like a moving window of 30 seconds and an update of half a second or something. So it's not a really, really finely grained signal. And that's all you need to do. It's very, very basic for this BioExplorer design. I will say, Radar, I'm like 80% of the way done through actual HEG software that I'm going to release that will have this sort of style of doing HEG built into it. I'm trying to finish up 2 or 3 other pieces of software first, including a fitness tracker for you guys to use and that directory website I mentioned. But after that, I'm going to go back to HEG software. And so you'll have that in a couple of months that you can use if you want as well with this sort of style. Yeah, Radar Ashwood, it would be cool if someone showed how to make designs on YouTube. The problem is the BioExplorer is really, really crufty, really old, really clunky, kind of buggy, and it's also poorly supported. So a lot of people that have it know how to use it and have their designs, and it's not the kind of software that people really are going to be buying and like setting up a business around because it's really kind of crappy these days. Let me set up my EEG training session. I'm going to plan it. Sorry, there's some fire trucks. Okay, so let's do C3 followed by, that's fine, followed by C4A2. Yeah, let's do that. How much time each? 12 minutes. It's probably fine. I'll do 9. I'll go short because I've already done 1 session. I'll do 9 and 12. That's fine. Asymmetric times. Cool. All right, let me just double check my amplifier. Let me see if I can get myself set up here. Okay. Yeah, BioEra is the other version of like prosumer or lower cost software like BioExplorer. Before we were on BioExplorer, now I'm on Eager, which is clinical commercial software. And BioEra is sort of a hybrid where you can make really awesome software with it, or you can use it more basically like you can use BioExplorer. But it's kind of clunky and hard to use. It's much more powerful than BioExplorer, but it has really poor interface. So I'm grabbing some silver wires here to put on my head, and I'm going to untangle them. Always spend time untangling wires. So yeah, Radar, I promise that sometime by the end of, let's say midsummer, I will have some HEG software for you. Now, part of the issue when using neurofeedback software and hardware is you often have to match those two things. So you can't just use any software with any hardware typically. And so one question I have for you, Radar, is what amplifier are you using? Because I'm initially developing the HEG software against the Wiz line of amps. So if you have an HEG compatible Wiz, then we're in business. And if you have a Neurobit Optima, that'll be my next port of call for setting up a driver access. But for now, I'm going to use, it's interesting. I'm going to unplug this, plug it back in. Use a Wiz. Okay, cool. So then you should be able to get after that. All right, so I think I managed to confuse the software because I had 2 amps plugged in. So let's see what happens when I set myself up. All right, I'm going to plug in the sockets of the amp. These Wiz amps use red minus black as their first channel, and the green socket is the ground. So I'm just going to plug in some wires. Okay, the blue wire is going to be my reference, and the green wire is on my scalp. So El Chadarino has given us some advice. We are meant to use a client or pipe out into a custom app or environment with BioExplora and BioEra if you want to make it stable. Can you pipe out from BioExplora? Does it have that degree of freedom? I thought it was a little more of a closed system. I know BioEra is really extensible, and a lot of commercial packages are built on top of it, actually. But I wasn't aware that people were still building things on top of BioExplora because it's not that good these days. I mean, it's functional, as you saw, but only for limited use. All right, let me put some wires on. C3, it's probably fine. BX Client, is that a library for BioExplorer? I've used things like BX Shadow. Those must actually, there's a code folder. Yeah, I don't need to learn the code for BioExplore any further. I've gotten frustrated enough. I'd rather get frustrated with my own software. All right, so I'm all set up with a C3. My amplifier's got a weird status light on it, which might mean that the amp is not being seen. So let's see what happens when I go to start my eager session. Run. Okay, let's just use box lights, really basic. Mode is unlicensed. And that was not the right amp. Okay, so let me fix the version enable expired. Oh, you know what? I think actually, let me just double check this. First of all, let me fix the port. It's COM3. It's COM3. Let me see. Not the same file. Okay, so it's COM5. Let me fix that. Option. I think maybe the software's not licensed. I have a license file in my email, but I didn't apply it. And I might have let the software license expire, at which point we will train with BioExplorer. Let me close this window, though. Let me see if this launches or not now. I fixed the which port the amplifier was. Let's do Island. Yeah, so it's not licensed. So, you know, we're seeing here the difficulty with using commercial software sometimes. So let me reopen BioExplorer, and I'll do something very, very basic. There it is. And let me close Eager. Okay, so I don't think you guys have ever seen me train with BioExplorer. You're laughing, right? Yeah, I know. Hey, Joey B, nice to see you. All right, so let me set up a training design in BioExplorer. First of all, you see in the upper right-hand corner here, it says no port in red. That means that I have to change the COM port again. We know it's on 5. There it is. Okay, now the question is, do I have any training designs on this? Let's see what the driver window says. Oh, link refs is turned on. That's why the light was on. Let's put it in EEG mode. There we go. Impedance is a tiny bit off apparently, but it should be okay. Huh. It does seem like it's not, CH1 in the upper right is flashing and not staying stable. My amplifier is not actually picking up, interesting. Well, let's see what happens. It's definitely grabbing the amp, even though it's flashing that color. Let me quickly open up a different design. I may be swapping amps here as well. Let me show you a design that I built, which is audio only. And it's a design that I really enjoy working with. Let me see if I have any signals, though. Oh, you know what might be happening with that CH1? Eager might be grabbing it. Let me close eager. It's a rule of thumb never to have both pieces of software open at the same time. No, that didn't help. Let's see if I have a signal or not. No signal. So something's up with my amp. Let me quickly reset it before I abandon it. It says no port. I'll go back in. Connecting, connected. CH1 is green for the moment. Might be good. Let's see. No, it's flashing. So let me switch it. Let me switch amplifiers. I think my amplifier might be in the fritz. So I'm gonna plug my other whiz in and then switch the wires in that device. And we're gonna do green on my head minus black, which is my, oh, I didn't put the ear clips on. Oh, that's why I don't have a signal. Why don't one of you experts tell me that's why I didn't have a signal? I'm sure the amplifier was fine, but I didn't put the ear clips on yet. So there's no reference and there's no ground. This is why there was actually no signal. So I was busy troubleshooting the wrong thing. You know, rule of thumb from when I used to work in high tech years ago, 9 times out of 10, the answer's on the screen. And the 10th time, something's not plugged in. So that's what was happening here. So that's the reference and then the ground wire. And when I plug this in, I'll have to change the COM port yet again. When I plug this in, it will go green. It'll be solid. So that flashing green light you saw on CH1 was actually the right thing for BioExplorer to have done. So right after I finished disparaging it, it was trying to give me useful information. Okay, let me change the COM port and let's see what our signal looks like. All right, back to COM 3 maybe? Back to COM 3. All right, now it says connected, and now CH1 is solid green, right? Okay, let me see any questions are waiting. Yeah, close eager. Good thought, El Chatarino. But in this case, it was a user error, an error at the interface between chair and keyboard. All right, so this is BioExplorer again, and this is an audio design. Let me go into my signal diagram and set up the frequencies. So I'm going to do 4 to 7 as a slow inhibit. That's fine. Let me do a reward of 14.75. Whoops. We're going to do 14.75 to 17.75. 14.75. It's always a good idea making changes to make sure they get captured. There we go. And then high inhibit, way too low. Let's do 24 and 36. And you can see the shapes there on the right representing the band we're capturing with the filter. All right, so I have a left side protocol. It says 12 minutes. I'm gonna go to 9. I just said on this left side of my head. 11, 10, 9. There we go. Go back to the training screen. And moment of truth. Hey, look at that. So not a lot of audio. Let me turn my speakers up. So what's happening now is I've set it up. You can see there in the bottom left, those are our thresholds. And they're dynamic right now. Set to 35, 35, and 5. Or 65, or 20, 35, 65, and 5 if this was eager. And so I think my design is broken. It's supposed to be giving me different pitches based on... oh, it is. So here's the MIDI. I'm using a vibraphone in the key of C major. And I'm literally just, if you notice, the note and the volume and the enable are all tied to different things. And there's an and in there as well. So you probably can't hear it that well on the YouTube video, but there's periodic audio coming and going, and they're lasting based on how in range or out of range I am. It's a swelling and dinging kind of audio signal. I really enjoy this design. Yeah, that was a good one, El Chatterino. Just not plugging wires in. Yeah. All right. So for those of you who are new to neurofeedback, let me add some noise to the signal by scratching. There we go. For those of you who are new to neurofeedback, this is a passive form of brain training. And that white squiggle there at the top are all the brain waves coming off my head right now. And I'm filtering out 3 different frequency ranges from that raw signal. And a little bit hard to see, but the red trace below the white one is the amount of theta I'm making. And I've tied that to the bottom left there, that red as well. I think it's not scaling very well. Let me scale that. Properties. There's settings. Yeah, there's settings. Let's do 100 microvolts. 100. There we go. So it wasn't scaled as well. But now you can see that whenever I'm under the bar, the crossbar, the threshold for the red below me, that's the theta being in range or staying low. And the green goes colorful when it's above its bar because it's set for a reward. So I've set this design up so the color bars, the thresholds below my talking head here, are only colorful if it's in range on the proper side of the threshold. So the red and the yellow have to be below their crossbars and the green has to be above it. Are the averages, El Chatterino has a question, are the averages, the reward and inhibit thresholds being met? Which averages? Let me look. Oh, the averages there on the right, those are just the signal averages for the bands. So 33 microvolts for the whole signal, 12 microvolts for the theta, 5 for the regular beta, and 11 for the high beta. We've got a spectral diagram. We have moving average. So, and then in terms of the signal, if you're asking about how we're creating an average for the rewards, these are just the displays, just the averages going to meters. We have the trends, which is not doing anything, obviously. And the thresholds are just taking the impasse, pass failing it. And then we have an and for enabling the MIDI. But we also have note and volume being driven by the reward band. So the reward band amplitude, right? Yeah, the amplitude of the signal. And the, where's that coming from? So the amplitude is, which one is it? Is it this one? So the amplitude is the volume and the note is the average. So the average of the reward, the average amplitude is going to be the note and the raw signal is going to affect the volume. That's why we're getting big volume swells. And then the enable is also being impacted. So is the trigger. So when the counter goes, which is a threshold event essentially, it triggers a new event, but we're also enabling the MIDI, which allows notes to continue to swell. So this is why we're getting a complex set of audio being presented back to us. Can you guys hear the vibraphone coming and going or not? You want to move my head so you can see the whole thing? Sure. Let me move my head now. There's not much behind my head. How's that? So it's just got the input. And then I'm doing band, and those are just filters. That little first stack of green is just filters. That's all it is. Just bandpass filters. So this is pretty basic design. Not a lot to it. Yeah, I have everything tied together, and I'm doing a lot of contingencies because of that, sort of tacitly. But I also love this design as a trainer because this is one of my very few designs that I find the eyes closed, audio only can be as powerful as the visuals because of the secondary effects like the pitch and the length of the signal, adding other parameters. And as a trainer walking around an office, it's kind of great because you can hear what's happening. As somebody goes deeper or they have big swells in their band of reward, you can hear it happening. And so you get a little sense of how someone's session is going just by kind of listening out of the corner. And so it's kind of a nice experience. So there we go. There's BioExplorer. I'll have to reinstall my Eager license before next week. Yeah, El Chatarino is making a note that audio is great in BioExplorer when it sounds good. It's just tricky to get it to sound good. And I agree. This is why I tend to only do the vibraphone, honestly. I mean, you can do all kinds of instruments, but that one MIDI object and the vibraphone is the one audio. That's really what I've settled on. I don't love most of the other audio. It sounds very, very synthetic. So check out the vibraphone MIDI object if you want in BioExplorer. So since we are talking about BioExplorer, you can still buy it. I think it's Cyber Evolution. They can be a little bit slow to ship. There's a guy on eBay that sells a lot of copies of BioExplorer as well. So it's not that hard to use. The hard part of neurofeedback is not doing it. It's not sticking wires to your head or setting up filters or getting good signals. The hard part of neurofeedback is knowing what to do and what to do next. You know, after you get a particular event or effect happening from the neurofeedback, then what? You know, you train, you feel a bit wired or focused or tired. Do you keep going? Do you train differently the next time? It's a very, very complex set of protocol adjustments you often have to make when doing neurofeedback. And that's really the hard part that still has yet to be solved in any real way without, you know, experience and skill, unfortunately. All right, so we're coming up on 8 minutes, and then I'm going to switch to the other side of my head. So can you guys hear the vibraphone during this particular set here, or was it just happening during the HEG? I think we have a 20-second delay in our chat, so I'll wait for one of you to tell me. Also, let me know your questions. Here we are coming up on quarter of, so about 15, 20 minutes more. I'm happy to hang out and chat. Of course, I'm always happy to hang out and chat. And if you do want to ask me your questions about your brain, your EEG, your biohacking goals, please feel free to book a call with me. I have free calls available. And happy to chat about what neurofeedback can do, what you can see in a brain map. So please feel free to look in the show notes below and grab the free call link. Thanks, El Chatarino. It does sound a bit low volume, but it sounds decent. Yeah, it comes and goes. Okay, so it stopped. See the traces stop there. So I'm going to go and change the design to a different set of frequencies. We've been doing 14.75, and we would not want to do that on the right side of the head. That would make me anxious very quickly. But I am going to do 11.75 all the way down. Oh, I did 17. Interesting. Okay. 14.75. That's fine. And then this one, we're just going to change down by 2 hertz, 22 to 34. That's fine. And we're going to add a few minutes. Let's add 3 minutes, do 12 minutes on the right-hand side of the head. And then really important when you're doing multi-segment neurofeedback like I'm doing, to have a sort of sense of the rhythm and the way you're training. So you don't just like start the next session without moving the wire on your head, because that is a thing people do. And if I trained this side again with those slower frequencies, it wouldn't actually hurt that much because of the way that I've set the protocol up. And that's kind of important actually, is I try to have people do protocols that if you make mistakes, they're fairly forgiving, but it wouldn't be ideal. It wouldn't make me very focused. I'd rather do this right side training. And so, by the way, if you're one of my clients watching this, if you're a Peak Brain client, if you ever make a mistake and you discover it in session, don't just then go train the right thing. Check in, because you can overtrain pretty easily if you train one way and then train the other in a bit of tissue. So it's a good thing to check in with. Our clients rarely make mistakes, but it can happen. We do a lot of live guided sessions initially. So, all right, so I'm set up now with right-sided training. Let me kick it off again. There we go. Okay. So now I'm doing SMR training at C4. C4? Yeah, pretty close. So yeah, I will, well, I won't share this design that I built. I will release some software at some point in the next few months that does these more simple neurofeedback things, because this does not require a huge amount of processing, and there's no reason in this day and age we don't have better software options available on Mac and PC. So I'll get something out to you guys that's relatively low cost when I can do that. But I'm more excited about getting these the directory and the fitness tracker for the brain out in the next few months. So I'll share the directory in the next week or two. And then the fitness tracker for the brain is to help you track neurofeedback protocols against other life hacks and goals and traits and states, and see what is impacting what. So you can really start to get a very quick sense of certain categories of lifestyle hacks or neurofeedback protocols or little tweaks you're doing and how those are impacting you retrospectively. So if you want to test that, let me know if you're a neurofeedback person. Especially if you work with other people, because it's going to be a client dashboard as well. Radar is asking, whoops, let me close this. I'm not sure why the Microsoft Store opened. Radar is asking, you have someone who is asking for help who seems to have issues with pain, schizophrenia, and dysautonomia. Ever helped anyone with a myriad of issues like that? Sure. Sure. Those are different things, of course. I mean, dysautonomia and pain often come together. And you'll have people with metabolic issues. You said they seem to have issues like schizophrenia. Thought disorders can look like a lot of other stuff, and a lot of other stuff can look like thought disorders. So you'll often get strong forms of OCD or anxiety looking like schizophrenia. You can have short-term infections or fevers looking like schizophrenia. So be very careful before judging it as schizophrenia. If it's truly one of those phenomena, the schizophreniform things, then you do basic neurofeedback. And the only real caveat is things just change really slowly. And in all the people that I've done neurofeedback with who have actual symptomatic schizophrenia, the neurofeedback works. You get anxiety changes, sleep changes, you get some executive function changes on things like the IVA CPT, but there's still this anxiety, there's still this dysregulation in sort of clarity of thought and being really present that I've seen often 4 to 6 months after starting. And in everyone that I've worked with, they've stopped doing neurofeedback about that point, and I've seen them several months later, and they all had a much better integration. Meaning there seems to be this longer term effect. Now we see this in general in neurofeedback. People stop training and often they keep changing. But in schizophrenia type things, in at least the individuals I've worked with, I've seen slower impacts while doing it. And then I've seen a very strong sort of long tail impact when they come back, 6 months later with dramatically different organization and hygiene and handwriting and all kinds of interesting things. Yeah, just be cautious of labels, Radar. Like resources can be valid without you having to be a diagnostician. You can talk about someone's anterior cingulate being dysregulated and the phenomena that come from it without having to decide if it's OCD or bipolar or whatever. So you can stay safe and ethical working in that landscape where, as long as the person's degree of care isn't what you can outside what you can provide, you don't need to become a diagnostician. You may have to come up with a good network of people around you who can support higher levels of acuity, though, if you keep getting people that have schizophrenia and strong anxieties and things. But no, just look at the QEEG, be cautious, go slowly. Look at the EEG. You're going to see some paroxysms perhaps in somebody if they have, bipolar 1 or 2, if they have schizophrenia, if they're strongly ADHD, a little autistic. all of the neurodivergent categories of phenomena tend to have dysregulated EEG. And of the EEG phenomena you'll see, there's a not insignificant fraction that will have spikes or spindles. Spindles and spikes are different types of dysregulation, spikes being more ictal or seizure prone, and spindles being more bursty. But you can kind of think of them as failures of regulation. One's overcoherent, one's over-revving. And you can work on them both with neurofeedback, but you wouldn't necessarily see a spike or a spindle in the QEEG. So really important that you look at the raw traces, especially if you're dealing with atypical anxiety, confused thought, that kind of stuff, because you'll see it in big, slow swells. You'll see phase reversals in parts of the brain. You'll see parts sort of like disconnecting and trying to go offline in the EEG sweeps. Got it. You just want to explain their behavior to me in a succinct way. I appreciate that. I'm just going off of my tangent of, what we do with neurofeedback is working with phenomena versus working with discrete DSM, 4 or 5 codes. So guys, I think that maybe once a month, I'll just do kind of a hangout and AMA style. I skipped last week. I kind of held up in a bunch of stuff. And I think I'll try to do these most weeks, and I'll always put up the announcement earlier that same day or the day before. She'll have at least like 10 or 12 hours to figure out if you want to come. But if you have topics you want me to get into in these Neurofeedback and Chill talks, please let me know. I was going to do some more in the next few weeks on some aging topics and longevity topics. I have a few on ADHD that I'm planning. And I'll roll out some other videos for you as well, some other shorts in the next few weeks. So let me know if there's something that I can do to make your journey through biohacking or neurofeedback a little bit more enjoyable or informative. El Chatterino, I missed your question. What data format does it take? Do you mean the app that I'm building? Right now, it just does HEG. So I'm just saving the binary HEG. Well, it's not binary. It's got a hex code, I think. I'm just saving the HEG data stream right now. When I set it up to do EEG, I will, of course, have it saved to EDF files, because why not? There's the tracker. The tracker dashboard is not really sucking in data in like neurofeedback data. It's really keeping track of our sleep and our stress and, the protocol we trained and things like that. So while we'll have some data integrations, hopefully for sleep trackers and things like that, it's really meant to be a dashboard of your workouts and the impacts they've had. So it's going to be more about like surveys and tracking and graphs showing what you've done, not really grabbing the real-time EEG sessions, at least for now. No, it's not going to be an EDF parser, at least right now. At some point in the future, I might want to do something where we can, take EDF files and create QEG maps from them or create analyses from them, depending. But I think that the raw data into usable format still requires a lot of subjective decisions. And so I don't know that EDF files dropped onto an automatic processing rig will ever remain as useful as both doing a careful QEG processing and scrolling through the raw data yourself. So it hasn't been my priority to do data processing within the tool. But yeah, we'll have the idea would be to pull in sleep trackers from the Health Kit. So Apple Health Kit or Android Health Kit, or, authenticate with the Oura Ring dashboard online, or your smart scale, that kind of stuff. And then you'll have your sleep, your respiration, your activity, all brought in automatically. And then we right now ask people every day, twice a day, if they're willing, to submit surveys and let us know in the morning how they're sleeping, and end of the day, how their goals are going and what else they may have noticed. And so the idea is that as you turn on goals within our tracking platform, it will generate certain types of questions related to those goals. And then those become part of your active questions you're tracking every day. And that is what gets reflected back to you historically. You can see that, let's say whenever you do C4 minus A1 is what I did, you feel really focused. And so you'll start to see a pattern emerge of the next day, you'll always see an increase of focus after a C4. And there's a way to stack these things visually in the new dashboard. So I will share that with you at some point in the next few weeks. For anyone who wants to be an alpha user, we could use a handful of people. Again, probably a few weeks out from private alpha, but I'll invite some people in, and then a few weeks out from public alpha for that as well. A few more weeks for public alpha. So if you want some advice in the neurofeedback landscape, if you want to look at your brain, please come see me. You can come to my Peak Brain offices and get some good data gathering. For anyone who's watching this YouTube video, I'll give you a deal. My physical offices in New York City, St. Louis, Los Angeles, and Orange County, California, we'll do a 50% brain map for you if you want. And the list price is $500. That means $250, and that gets you a year's worth, actually, not just one, but as many as you need for a year. And I'll also offer a discount for a one-off in Stockholm or London at our other offices overseas. I can't give you a full comp or an unlimited on those because the pricing's set up a bit differently overseas. But you're more than welcome to hit me up for a deal on some neurofeedback programs as well. Well, thanks for hanging out with me tonight, guys, when I've been training. Let me see where my timer is looking for the session. Okay, about 20 more seconds in my training session, and then I think I'll finish up unless you have lots of questions. So get your questions in while I'm cleaning up, and we'll go from there. So I hope you've all had a wonderful evening hanging out, and if you're watching this later, please leave questions in the box below. If you're watching this live, go find another video, leave a question, give a like, give a subscribe. Do me a favor and try to boost the algorithm's awareness of us in any way that you can. And Google loves when people engage with videos. So I so entreat you, if you want to support the channel, support my work, and you don't want to grab a brain map, find a video or three to engage with. Okay, so I'm just cleaning up a little bit of paste. Normally this stuff comes off pretty easily. It's water soluble. I don't have much hair, which makes it even easier. There we go. All right, so here we are, guys. Have a lovely evening. You take care of those brains. I will talk to you all soon, hopefully. And you can find my direct call links in the show notes below. You can also find a link to Peak Brain website, where we have some specials available for you with neurofeedback programs and brain mapping programs. And if you have any questions you want to talk about, your brain or other forms of biohacking, just give me a shout. Always happy to get into this stuff and geek out a little bit. But until next time, folks, I'll talk to you later. You have a lovely evening or morning